Good afternoon. Today I'm talking to Malcolm Hollingdrake. Hi, Malcolm. You are here to talk about your new book. So would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and your new book?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for having me on here. The new book published today is the first in the Merseyside, I can never do this properly, first in the Merseyside crime series called Catch as Catch Can, and features two female detectives on this occasion. A D.I. April Decent, got to be careful because I've got an April in the other series, and a D.S. Skeeter Warlock, and it's been really good fun writing the female voice for this series. It was something that I was a little bit anxious of, but I loved it as I progressed, and they're both very different characters. Certainly Skeeter has been the one that I have truly enjoyed researching and writing. I think she's probably more like my character than Decent is. Decent's much more intelligent and sharp thinking, knows what she wants and knows how to get it. Skeeter knows the same but has a different way of getting what she wants. So it's been good fun, and that's going to be followed very quickly by Sin, which is also written, and now I think I got this yesterday through, and so the team develops. The first one is set predominantly in Liverpool itself, where there's a mix of teenage kids stealing mopeds for their own good, so they can use it for different crimes: bag snatch, phone snatching, delivering drugs, working with a team, and a little bit like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In fact, Snow White is key to this. And it was inspired, really, the story, by somebody. I met somebody on holiday who had a tattoo of Grumpy, and I just thought, wouldn't it be good to write a story based around the dwarfs, and because they were children, it seemed to, well, not children, but youths, it worked very, very well. And that is linked with the finding of a corpse on the beach, and eventually they link. But what was lovely about writing this is one of the characters, one of the girls, who, the criminal girls, suddenly becomes wants to leave because her partner has disappeared, and she moves away of her own accord, and eventually manages to extract herself from the group. But that's as far as I can tell you about that, because otherwise I would give too much away. But it's predominantly set around the Liverpool area, whereas Sin moves further up the Sefton coast, and most of the action that takes place in Southport. And Southport for me is a fascinating Victorian seaside town where you sometimes will never be able to see the sea because it's beyond, way out. But it's not too dissimilar from Harrogate in its architecture and its style, and so it's been good to bring the White Rose across to, it's not really the Red Rose, is it, because it's not in Lancashire, but it's in Merseyside, but to come to this coast. And I've thoroughly enjoyed writing the start of that series, and hopefully today, when more and more people read it, they'll like it. I might find it a little bit different from the Harrogate series, because that's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to have it similar. I wanted to have some difference. I wanted to have so you can actually clearly define between one series and the next. And I don't know whether I've been successful at that, but I will soon find out when the reviews start to come in.
Well, as someone who's read both, then yes, you have successfully done that.
That's lovely to know, because that's what it really, and same in the characters. And I know I love writing about Cyril, and I love writing about David Owen, but David Owen is the one that I get the most pleasure out of developing, and that interaction with Bennett. And I think I'm going to have the same pleasure writing about Skeeter as I have with that. And people say, well, very strange titles for your books. And I didn't tell anybody about the titles. And it was great because the publisher, Hollingdrake Books, never said to me, we need to change the title. It's too long, it's too cumbersome, it's too, but it fits so well. And Skeeter Warlock is a wrestler, not the wrestler that you see in the ring, but a mat wrestler. And Wigan, where she lives, Catch as Catch Can wrestling has always gone on. And there's a famous wrestling gym called the Snake Pit. And that was started by Riley in a shed at the bottom of his garden. And all the miners would go, lads, to learn to wrestle. And it's a very, very stringent discipline. A very hard sport indeed. And I went to see a gentleman called Royce Banks, who has a gym at Ince in Wigan, who's a wrestler himself. And we talked quite some time about Catch as Catch Can wrestling. So it has a mixed, because it's how to catch certain people for the police, but also Catch as Catch Can. And Skeeter knows how to use the techniques of Catch as Catch Can when she's put into a corner, let's say. She's really good. Now, Sin is different again. And I don't know if you don't know, got the connection between Sin. No?
I remember.
I put you on the,
Yeah.
with the cover, with on the cover is a scarecrow. And when I was a very young kid, I used to read a series called Dr. Sin. And Dr. Sin was, used to wear a scarecrow mask, and he was a smuggler, but he was actually a vicar as well. So he was mixed between the two, and the connection between the scarecrow and the characters made me want to put Sin spelt the way that Sin is spelt for Dr. Sin. And the scarecrow plays quite a significant role within the story itself, doesn't it, Anna? So that's why that one's titled up.
How did you get into the female head so that you could write genuine female characters?
Well, I was fortunate because I had written through the female voice for some of the characters within the Harrogate series, particularly Liz Graydon, and then, of course, April Richmond, who came through. And originally, when I planned this series, because I was originally commissioned to do this series by another publisher, and I thought about it, and I got the names in my head. I didn't get the title, but I had the names in my head for the two characters. I had Skeeter Warlock and I had April Richmond, and I was going to bring April Richmond across from Harrogate to Merseyside as promotion. And when I started to write it, I didn't feel comfortable with it at all. I just thought I wanted a complete break away from Harrogate and write new characters. And I was listening to a radio program. It was Emma and Martin Truelove's Bradford Radio Royal program on a Sunday. I listen every Sunday. And he interviewed an author. I can't remember a Christian name, but his surname was Decent. I thought, that's a great name. And originally I was going to call the books A Decent Murder, A Decent Crime, but and I thought, that's a little bit twee, isn't it? And so I won't have that. But I wanted to keep decent. And because it's a surname I've not heard before. And strangely enough, I because she lives on her own, I gave her a dog as well. And I gave her a retired greyhound that she's taken on and called Tico. And the original question, right there, I suppose it's when you get to my age, you've met a lot of females. You've met a lot, your mum, your auntie, your granny, and I've as a teacher, particularly in primary school, I've worked with a lot of female teachers. Majority of people in a primary school are female. I mean, I think I've been the only male for many, many years, sometimes in the school. So you get that affinity, you get that feel. And I've met some who are really tough, Skeeter Warlock figures. And I've met some who are really good thinkers and that you can rely on all the time. They've always got your back in a situation within the school. And so I would imagine it's a menage of that. You're bringing all of those together and picking out the bits that you really want. And what I've got to be careful of now is how I develop them, and thinking the way that they hopefully would think. And I'm very lucky because Debbie will read through and say yeah or no, and that's vital. Because I'm going to get it wrong, aren't I? I mean, I'm a man. I'm going to get it wrong at some stage. A woman would not say that, you know. She not do that like that, you know. We were talking about stapling in the heads, weren't we, the other day, earlier? And it's right, isn't it? I mean, it's that sort of difference, isn't it? Yin and yang on Pluto and Mars or whatever it was. But I hope I've achieved what I want to achieve, and I like the characters, and I get a buzz from the characters. So that's half the battle, I think. And they don't swear that much either.
No, they don't actually. And I like the fact actually that in the first book, considering it's the first in a series, you don't actually know a lot about them. They get thrown straight into a case and they have to get on with it. And you don't actually sort of get to know them until the second book, really, which I thought was actually quite a nice, refreshing change.
Thank you. I didn't want to clutter it with with history. I didn't want to actually. I didn't want them to have any real hang-ups. I didn't want them to be drunks. I didn't want them to have been divorced 3 times, and I wanted them to grow a little bit like a shadow in the morning sun. I wanted them to get stronger as the series goes on, and you will find out more about them. You will find out their back catalogue, and you will. But I don't want that to detract from the general story. I want that to support it in some ways, and you find out more about them, why they act in a certain way because of something that's happened in the past, when it's relevant within the story and within the series. And I think you're not the first person that I've received a review today about somebody who actually put that as well, that it wasn't too cluttered with past and detectives with serious problems mentally and emotionally and all of that. And I've never really tried to, I've never done that in the other series, and I really didn't want to do it in this series.
Yeah, it's interesting from a reader's point of view, actually, where your first one is, there's so much going on story-wise, and then the second one, you've got one story, sort of, and then you've got more characters, which is really cool from a reader's point of view to read them like that.
It's funny you say that about characters, sorry, but I'm always conscious of having too many characters within a story, too many names in a story, because it can get, you can feel wrapped in a crowd, really, can't you? And you think, who is that? Who was that? Who was that person there? So I try to keep it to a limited number, and that's a challenge in itself. Sometimes you think, do I need to name this character in this now because they're just coming in and going out, or do I need to just describe them briefly and let them go? So it's a skill that I think you learn the more you write, and the more you listen to reviews and what people say, you can actually hone the craft as you go on. And that's something that I'm really conscious now about when I'm writing. Just keep the number of people within the tale to a minimum, just the number that you need. You know, don't overburden it. Don't have it too few. Try and keep it right, and that's what you work to.
Yeah, I think something I noticed was that the team, the police investigation team, was quite small. Yeah. So that worked quite well. I'm kind of looking forward to reading more about the characters, because you've given hints to the characters in there. So, and there's going to be some interesting characters, I think. So. Yeah,
there's always going to be somebody flying a paper aeroplane, I think, in the room. And I found that quite fascinating. And I saw somebody do that, so I thought, oh, that will work within the story, you know, because they never fly well, do they? They always land in the wrong place, and then they open it, the note inside it. I think that's communications of 2021 in the police station. Don't do email. Have a paper note.
But they tolerated, you know, it wasn't all serious and all, no, you can't do that. You know, it was just like, oh, they're doing that again, that's fine.
Yeah, and one of them was where April Decent actually picks one up and takes it to where it should go. And you can feel that, does she say something, I don't want to see this happening again, but she doesn't, you know, she sort of says, yeah. That's part of the pleasure of the writing, that you can actually change the person as they develop. That they we've all been in when I changed school, you know, people say, oh, you don't want to go sit in that person's seat over there, you know, that's so and so's, they've sat in that for the last 22 years, you know, if you're sitting there at playtime, you'll be in trouble. And I think when we all go to these new positions, you tread warily, you know, you see all, hear all, and say as little as possible until you know what's going on. And I think April was very much like that when she got into this situation. She's assessing everybody and making up her own mind of who she can trust and who she can't trust, and that comes out, I think, as well when they're driving to the crime scene on the beach, and the young driver, police officer, insults her in a way, and she sort of gives him both barrels without any problem at all, and sets the grounding. There's the mark in the sand, and you're not going to go over it. You know, you can come up to it, but don't go any further. And I remember as a young teacher, one head teacher said, I called him by his Christian name, and he turned straight away and said, Mr. So-and-so, until I say, you can say. And you just remember it and bring it into the story.
What is it with the names in your book?
I knew you were going to ask me that question.
I couldn't think of a better way of putting it, but yeah.
Well, with Skeeter Warlock, yeah, that was already preset, but there are quite a few names. Liverpool, of course, is a port, and it's a melting pot, isn't it? I mean, you've got so many different people from different countries and different races living there, and they've lived there since they were born, and they all come together. And they all have fascinating names. So if you want a Romanian, they're not going to be called John, are they? They're going to be called Pete. So I find it, the hardest job I find in writing is finding character names. And if I give a manuscript to Deb, she says, you've got 4 Stuarts in this book, or 2 Peters, or... Well, with this, I couldn't have that, because I have so many different names from people from different parts of the world, but all Scousers, most of them are born in Liverpool. So finding the names was a case of trawling the internet for suitable names that I thought worked with them. And yeah, it's a bit complicated at times, isn't it? But a lot of them don't last very long, though, do they?
What about Bob Lawn then?
Pardon?
What about Bob Lawn?
Bob Lawn?
Yeah.
Bob Lawn is a real person. Bob Lawn is a person I know who lives in Knaresborough. And I just thought it worked great because, you know, there'd be so many quips about his name as he travelled around different forces, because he's not connected to any particular force, he's connected to the drug. And, you know, the grass doesn't grow under his feet and all of those that they come out with, and, you know, green as grass and all of that, you know, he's dead. And I just love the name. And I like using names of people I know, because I have this, I can actually picture them when I'm writing. I can actually put that in, and I think, oh, that's good. And I used to do competitions online for people if they wanted to be in one of my books. And the majority of people who came along were women who won. And I'd say, would you like to be good or evil? And 90%, probably more, wanted to be as evil as you could possibly make them. And I remember a girl called Monica Mack, fabulous. You could never make that name up, could you? And she was an assassin. But Monica was a nurse and lives in Tasmania. And so we used her, but she only lasted, I think, 2 chapters. She died in not a pleasant way. And yet April Richmond, who is the mother of somebody who's followed me for a very long time won the competition, and I only had a good character, and she's been in, well, you know how many books that April Richmond has been in. So you see good works. If you're good, you last for ages. If you're bad, you don't. It's 2 chapters and you're out. So that's the reason why the names. I just think I've tried to make them as real as possible as well. And I think, I think Bob Lawrence lovely. I think he'll never be in another book, but I thought he worked well with being able to having the quips on his, because he tells them straight away, doesn't he, when he comes in? Yeah. I've heard this one, I've heard this one, I've heard this one, I've heard this one. But if you've got anything original, I'm always willing to hear it. And it's funny because, again, for Bob, I don't know if you know the crime author, Bob. Oh, he writes with his wife. He was one of the Yorkshire Ripper detectives, Bridgestock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And in a way, I could visualize Bob Bridgestock as well. That sort of demeanor. And I've met Bob on a couple of occasions. He's actually done some of the noir works with me. And to me, he's a real copper. He's, in the way that he is, his demeanor, the way he stands when he's been interviewed about certain things. And it's great. So, yeah, Bob's good.
Yeah, were you laughing as you were writing it?
No, do you know what? I was just taking as much from it as possible. But I like. Yeah, I don't know if you think, but I do try and put a bit of humour into some of the books as well, and I think that within crime writing that does help quite a lot.
Yeah, you've got humour in the Harrogate series as well, I think. So
yeah, I think it's got to be there, hasn't it? Because it's real life. I mean, we never go through a day without either hearing a joke or telling a joke or somebody doing something stupid, and if it's only somebody's name. I mean, there's nobody more with Hollingdrake, I was sitting with the publishers yesterday outside the Rubber Duck Hotel, and my name is Hollingdrake. Drake at the end and the rubber duck. And, I think I didn't take them there deliberately. That's the way it was. Good old Dockland Bootle,
when you were writing, did you ever have any problems with your Harrogate characters coming into your head?
Yes, all the time, and I've actually written in manuscript April Richmond a few times instead of April Decent, and it's having that, keeping them separate and keeping the characters quite different that has helped. And I know the successful characters in the Harrogate series, so I can adapt some of the characters within the new series to be not too dissimilar, and that helps me because that's the foundation on which I can build. But I hope and will pride myself if people think great series separate, or enjoyable series separate, enjoyable. They don't interact. And I hope each of these, is just like the Harrogate, can be read as a standalone. You won't have to go. You could read Sin without actually reading Catcher's Catch Cat.
You said that you've only written 2 and you're going to see how they go, but do you have a plan of how far you can go and what you'll do with them if you do carry on writing?
Yes. Yeah. If what I'm hoping that I'll see how readers respond to them, and if they like them, then I'll certainly write a 3rd. If Hollingdrake want me, then I'll put it to Hollingdrake and see if they'd want to take it, that manuscript. And very much like the Harrogate series, who'd have thought that 3-4 years ago that I'd write 10 books in the Harrogate series, writing number 11 at the moment. I would never have predicted that at all. So who knows where this one will go? I think it just depends on the response from the readers out there.
And are you just going to stick to writing the Harrogate series and this one if it's successful, or do you want to write something different?
I've written one other, Bridging the Gulf, that you know about. And writing standalone, I think, is very hard because they stand alone and they sometimes get lost. Whereas if you're writing a series, people enjoy and wait for the next book. I get quite a few posts saying, when's the next book coming? I'm on book 9 now, and I know there's a 10, but I'd like a number 11 when I finish the 10, please. Unfortunately, I can't write that quickly, but certainly, for me, it's the character development within a series that I thoroughly enjoy writing about. And I would, Mel, with my standalone book, I'd love to develop some of the characters in there. Some you can't because they no longer exist, but there are some that I would have liked to have developed. But then I didn't have the ideas to move that on. And I think that's because it's not set in a proper place. Whereas these are set in places I can actually go and visit and look and walk the streets and smell the smells, and I let my senses take it all in, and then write from where I am. So the answer is, I think I've got my hands full. If people like the Merseyside series, I think I've got my hand full writing 2 books in 12 months, one for each of the series. I think that would be me happy in that sense.
With your Harrogate series, do you have an end point in mind, or are you just gonna keep writing?
I'm just, until people, I think it's been the best selling, Fragments was the best selling Harrogate book I've produced. Other than, that's wrong to say, the first one is actually, and the box sets them really, really well. But from publication to now, it's had a tremendous number of positive reviews, and it's had very, very strong sales. So I must be doing something right with the Harrogate series. So to cut it short, I've still got books within me, I think, for Harrogate, and I've still got developments for the characters. But there will come a time where it becomes, you lose that affinity with it. You lose, it becomes thin. There's only so much you can write about people. So having the second series just rejuvenates me a little bit and gives me that chance to develop those new characters.
Because when I'd spoken to Tony Forder, because he's written Bliss in a timeline, and he knows realistically that he's got to retire him at some point. But I don't think you've done that with.
No. I remember. I don't know if it was Ian Rankin or the very tall gentleman, Lee Child, who actually said they've stopped aging for a short period of time to keep them running. So now, who knows how old Cyril Bennett is? I've never given him an age. I mean, he's only just got married, hasn't he? No, they're ageless, and that's how they should be in a way. And I think it's Debbie who says to me, Kath Gerritsen actually kills people off, but then brings them back to life, amazingly. And that's what's made her stop reading her books, because 3 books down the line they've come back again. She's, I'm sure they died 3 books ago. And so, no, I'll keep. As long as they still fire me, I'll keep writing. And Cyril will never retire. He might be killed, but he'll never retire.
As long as you don't kill David Owen, that's fine.
No, he's invincible, David, isn't it? He's got his more stuff over himself. He's got this like a layer of armor of tomato ketchup, HP sauce. It's all there in front, like a mighty shield.
But he's his own worst enemy.
Indeed. Well, aren't we all? I think we all are sometimes, don't we? But he's a nice character to write, is Owen. He really is. He was only known as Owen, isn't it? Owen.
Yes.
I think that's. Somebody said to me once, why come you have Christian names, so many Christian names as surnames in your books? And I'd never thought about it till they said that. It's true. Again, similar problem to having too many Stuarts or too many Amandas or too many Donnas in the book. You've got 4 Donnas in this book. No.
You wouldn't want me.
You don't know. You might appear yet, girl. You never know. You never know. I wouldn't tell you until you read it.
No, I know you wouldn't.
You might be one of the swimmers in the Stanley Dock.
Oh.
I must tell the reader, the listeners really, yesterday I was at Stanley Dock with, no, it wasn't, it's Sunday, with Hollingdrake, my publishers, and we did a podcast there. And while we were looking out at Stanley Dock, which isn't the prettiest of places and the cleanest of water, there was somebody swimming around in it. And there was somebody who just climbed out wearing a pair of Speedos with his arms folded, chatting to somebody on the side. And we all had coats on, and it was, you know what the wind is like off a river. It's pretty chilly even on a sunny day. I thought, well, they're brave. They are brave. They'll not get COVID, that's for sure. Goodness me, if they can survive in that, they'll not get anything. Yeah. Are you looking at questions?
No,
You're cheating.
No.
You're cheating. Told me you didn't have any, and now you're cheating, aren't you?
I'm looking at my dog. He's so fast asleep, his legs are kicking.
Oh, God. He's running from something.
Yeah, bless him.
Was that bliss him or bless him?
Either. If you were to be killed in a book, how would you like to be killed?
In my sleep, gently, smothered gently. And I'll leave that to your own imagination. There are certain ways I certainly wouldn't like to be killed, and I've written about them in some of the books. I certainly wouldn't like the Charles Horner hatpin treatment. In that slow process, definitely not. And in the book I'm writing at the moment, that will be my worst nightmare, and anybody's worst nightmare, because it actually doesn't kill him. But I probably wishes it had. Can I just be indestructible? Can I just be? No, I suppose, I don't know. I really don't. Somebody once said to me that drowning was a very pleasant way to go, but I don't think that will be the case.
No, I don't either. I've heard that.
No,
as
I
well.
don't think anybody's asked me that question before. How would you like to die? You know.
Only in fiction, not in life.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself in that position to be able to answer the question, haven't you? Yeah, I'll go for smothering while I'm asleep, so I don't know anything about it. Is that okay?
Yeah, so you don't want to be like a big display for some weird serial killer?
No, definitely not. No, I don't know. No. Just quietly. I'll go quietly, please.
Is there any? You don't really read, actually. What?
I don't read anything.
If you were to be, yeah, I know. I forgot about that. If you were to be a detective in any TV program, then what would you be? Who would you be?
I don't have a television. Ask me another one.
Okay. Fine.
I remember Van der Valk. Could that be him?
Yeah.
Oh, and Morse. I think Morse is nice. I like Morse. And his psychic I like as well. But I've not had a television since 1984.
Year after I was born.
and the set was really big, and it was like massive, and we rented it from Radio Rentals, black and white. It's true.
Who would you have as your psychic if you were
Debbie?
You'd have Debbie. You wouldn't have Rob.
No. Mr. Ashman. Goodness me.
How many days would you be fired in, or how many hours?
I'd have Rob Ashman, but I don't think we'd survive after a Saturday night with Mr. Ashman. I don't. He would. I mean, he wouldn't. Nothing would happen to him, but I would not be able to walk for at least 3 days after I've been out with him. As a sidekick, much as I love the man, no, I don't think it may. No. I think you have to have sidekicks that are complementary, haven't you? And as in Skeeter and in April, they each have qualities that help. You've got to be able to hand over that responsibility and know, or if you're in a difficult situation, you've got to know that you trust them totally. And just like Owen and Bennett and Skeeter and these, they trust each other. Even though in this series they've only just got to know each other, but they each know that when the chips are down, that they're both good. They both can find. I don't mean in a physical sense, but I mean in a mental sense and the detecting sense, and and I think they're far more astute than Owen and Bennett in as much that they interact without speaking, and that I think will develop more and more as they go on. They almost can pre-think what the other thinks and know each other well and know how they will handle themselves and know how they will work together and so on. More so than the rest of the team. I think they'll become really quite strong characters. Whereas I don't think Cyril trusts Owen to actually bring him a cup of saucer that matches, does he?
He doesn't.
They'll get there in the end.
Bless.
Bless it. It's amazing how many people say that when you say David Owen. Oh, bless it.
He's so cute. He's a fictional character and it's so cute.
Lots of people have said that, you know, who do you prefer? Oh gosh, it's got to be Owen. It's got to be Owen. He's just lovely. And I'd love to know, you know, Donna, I'd love to know what image people have in their mind's eye of the characters. You know, how do they see Owen? How do they see Bennett? How do they see Warlock? How do they see? I mean, Skeeter's described more than anybody, I think, because of the characteristics of cauliflower ear and bent nose and so on. But and you can visualize that, can't you? And tightly plaited hair. You can visualize that. But how do you visualize David Owen?
I guess you kind of try and think about someone that you know that kind of matches, you know, is tall and scruffy. And I think you just sort of try and think and then maybe sort of have that picture in your head. But yeah, it is. And
that was, you know, that's true. And that was funny when they turned the books into audio books, the Harrogate series. Because although I was told I was going to help choose the voice, because I had this voice in my head for Cyril Bennett when I wrote these, as I do for all the characters. And yet I never did. I never got that choice. And the first time I heard it was when I had to physically buy the audio copy to hear it. Unfortunately, it was narrated by a gentleman called Nick Cam. And now, when I write Bennett, I hear Nick Cam. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. And when the audiobook comes out for these two, I know Adrian's narrating these, and I think he'll be perfect. Even though it's a man narrating the female voice, I think it'll be great.
See, I think Bennett, it is your voice when I read it.
Really?
But that's just because I love listening to your voice. I just listen to you talk all the time.
Thank you very much.
Not that I think Bennett's that old necessarily. Not the same that you're that old. But I think
I'm old. I would have retired from the police years and years and years ago.
No, you're fine.
They're buried with my badge and truncheon. I've been.
But yeah, here's your voice when I read the Harrogate series.
Oh, that's nice.
Since I got to know you.
That's lovely. That's lovely. I tell you, that was a really good, a big compliment. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I'd literally just listen to you talk all day.
And sleep.
No, well, we've been talking for 2.5 hours, so.
Yes, true.
So you know that.
Well, somebody once said, why don't you narrate your own? Could you imagine? That would mean I'd have to read the book, wouldn't it? I don't read books.
And do you have anyone pictured in your head if the new series was to be made into TV or anything?
You know, no, I haven't. I've not even thought about that, to be honest. It's very difficult because not having a TV, and for the last months, we've never been to a cinema. I've never seen a new film. I wouldn't know who's an up and coming actress to take that role on. No. And besides, do you know what? I don't think you get the choice, because if this was optioned, and wouldn't that be lovely? But if it was optioned, I think that goes out. You don't get a say in that at all. Somebody else will have that say. So, no. They'd have fun with Skeeter though, wouldn't they?
It would, yeah. I don't know how they'd do that, to be honest.
Well, it's always a good challenge. They're very good these days with these computerized things, aren't they? I suppose they'll do anything. It's funny because if you look on the internet for the tobacco warehouse where we were on Sunday, where some of this is set, and they filmed an American film actually at the dock warehouse, and it's created to look like America, New York, and it's amazing how it does. And they've superimposed the Statue of Liberty and the bridge, and goodness me, it's fantastic. And yet we were there, as I said to you about the man spraying graffiti on the bridge, the same colour as the bridge, so you couldn't see his graffiti. I thought that's going to be in a book. I'm not telling you, it's going to be in one of the books.
Yeah, I'll look out for it and I'll laugh when I see it, because I know I'll remember.
Couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. Silver bridge, silver paint, same colour, exactly the same shade. And he wasn't a workman. That's Liverpool. That's Merseyside.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you.
Right. No, I'm grateful. Thank you very much indeed. And if anybody's fancies Catch as Catch Can, it's now available paperback and for Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. And on the 18th of May, following sharply at its heels, is Sin. So I do hope you enjoy them, and I'm very grateful, Donna. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for your fabulous review of Catch as Catch Can.
You're very welcome. Yes.
Emma Morning. And I think we've got 9, or we have 9 very strong reviews today before I came to chat to you. So brilliant. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Yeah, and if anyone hasn't read them, then as someone that's read them both, you should read them because they're brilliant.